All right, I'm going to jump in and get started. Thanks for everybody for coming today. My name is Jesse Barnum, and today's session is going to be from F Academy is going to be 360works MirrorSync 2, the ideal mobile development solution. Our moderator is Will Slaughter. He's on the line with me from 360works. He's one of the support personnel and also has helped with development for MirrorSync. My name is Jesse Barnum, also from 360works. A little bit about FM Academy and what this group is. FM Academy is a group of FBA Platinum members who are committed to increasing the overall technical as well as business knowledge level within the FileMaker community. The members of FM Academy are in different geographic locations, and so we are 360works. We're based in Atlanta. We also have an office in San Francisco. There's Anvil DataWorks, which is based in the Baltimore/DC area. There's DB Services in Indianapolis, IT Solutions in Philadelphia, Keylogic in Connecticut and Boston, MSN Media in Portland, and Skeleton Key based in St. Louis. So a little bit about 360works. I founded the company in 1996. We have offices, as I mentioned, in Atlanta and San Francisco. We are a platinum member of the FileMaker Business Alliance. We have 7 FileMaker certified developers on staff, ranging from versions 7 through 13. And in general, we do all sorts of development, FileMaker, non-FileMaker, but what we really specialize in and what most people know us for is doing product development, plugins for FileMaker, add-ons for FileMaker. We also do, not as many people know that we do a lot of integration with non-FileMaker systems, whether it's SQL, XML, web services, JDBC, SOAP, that kind of stuff. We do a lot of FileMaker integration projects. A little bit about me. I am the president of 360works. In 2010, I was the winner for the FileMaker Business Alliance Award for Outstanding Contribution to the FileMaker Community. I am the primary author of MirrorSync and several other 360works products. And MirrorSync won the FBA Solution of the Year award last year at DevCon in 2013. So that was very satisfying for me personally, since I put a lot of time into this product. I've been doing FileMaker development since 1992, and I like some things I like personally is sailing, archery, photography, which gives me a lot in common with a lot of you at DevCon, and also soccer, coaching youth soccer. My son plays, and I enjoy the game a lot. So congratulations, Germany, if we have any Germans on the webinar. And so before I get started, I just wanted to make sure probably everybody has been on webinars by this time, but if you haven't, or if you're not familiar with it, there's a section in the right on the control bar where you can ask questions. Will's going to be monitoring those questions as they come in, and if there is a question that is particularly timely to what I'm presenting, he'll jump in and let me know so that I can answer that question. Otherwise, he'll make a list of those, and we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end of the session. I'm hoping to have a 40 to 45 minute presentation, which will leave us 15 to 20 minutes for questions at the end. I always feel like questions are really where a lot of the vital information comes in. If we don't get to your question, we do get a list of all the questions that come in. So after the session ends over the next couple of days, we'll try to write private replies to each one of you that didn't get your question answered. If you don't get an answer from us, or if you didn't get time to ask your question, you can always email us at support@360works.com, and we will reply to you as soon as we can. A little bit about MirrorSync and the history behind MirrorSync. The original version of MirrorSync was released more than 2 years ago. I did a series of user group presentations. I presented it at DevCon. Several other FBA members did presentations at their user groups on MirrorSync. And the good news is that a lot of people became aware of what MirrorSync was and what it did. But I don't know if everyone is really that aware of what is new in MirrorSync 2. And so that was only released in December of 2013. And so that is going to be the focus of my webinar today, is talking about the features that are new in MirrorSync 2. The next slide here has got a list of every major feature in MirrorSync 2. And what I've done is I am just going to let this scroll so you can read it. And what I've done is I've highlighted in yellow the features that I'm going to be focusing on in today's webinar. The server-to-server sync is a major feature, and that's going to have to wait for a later session. The multi-threaded support is something a lot of you asked us for. The Linux deployment has been very important for some of our hosting providers that offer hosting support for MirrorSync. And so I know that list went by a little quickly. It might have been hard to read everything on there. We're going to send out an email with all of the with this presentation deck, both in PowerPoint and Keynote format, to everyone who registered for this webinar. So everyone will get this presentation. In addition, if you go to the MirrorSync site at mirrorsync.com, there's a link on there that says what's new, and it's a much more detailed list of all of the features, both major and minor, in every version of MirrorSync. So what I have on this slide is all of the highlighted features from the last slide. I just put them on here so I can kind of prep you for what I'm going to be talking about today. The first thing that the first bullet point here is the speed improvements throughout the sync process. And to really make this point about the speed improvements, I decided to do something maybe a little risky, but I think it'll be worth it, which is that all of this presentation is going to be going from, I'm actually at home right now delivering this webinar. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted a realistic speed comparison when I'm showing you these sync speeds, because a lot of your users are at home and in coffee shops and places that don't have 100 megabit internet like we do at our office. So I'm just at my home on my cable internet connection, and all of my syncing is going to be done with our server running in Virginia. It's 600 miles away. And so I wanted to do this so that you would be able to see realistically what the sync process looks like when you're going over a wide area network on typical home level internet connections. So I think you'll be impressed with the speed that you see throughout the sync process. I'm also going to be demonstrating that in MirrorSync 1, if you're familiar with it, you probably were aware that MirrorSync 1 could only sync with a copy of your main file on your server. MirrorSync 2 changes that so that now you can have a separate mobile file that is a light version of that application, and it can be very task dedicated. So I'm going to show that to you. You can also have, on this third bullet point, the drag and drop field and layout matching. If you have a mobile database that you're trying to sync to, and it has different field names or layout names, you need a way to match those up. And so I'm going to show you how simple that is to do with the drag and drop interface. The download link feature has been substantially improved from MirrorSync 1. The download link feature lets you send an email to your remote users with just a simple hyperlink that they can click to get the latest version of the database onto their laptop or iPad or iPhone. Some improvements on that is that we now do compression on those files on the fly as they're sent. So they're shrunk down typically to about a third of their size. So it's very efficient for users to download copies of those offline files. We can also now produce an empty clone. So if you have a large server file and you want to send your user a stripped down version of it so they can just sync in their subset of records, that's now supported in MirrorSync 2. The field level conflict merging, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about because you'll see that when I get to the demo, but it's quite cool. And this next bullet point, custom record filters, this was the one that we've been asked for the most. We probably had more feature requests for this than any other single item. And so MirrorSync 2 now makes it very, very simple to just use a FileMaker script to control which records your mobile users are going to get on any criteria that you want. So I'll show that to you in this demo. And then the last thing, which is not really a demo point, but which is important for you to know, is that MirrorSync 2 is completely free with all of the features and with no expiration date for a single device. So you can download this from mirrorsync.com and just start using it for free immediately today. So the first demo, I've got two demos for you today. The first demo I'm going to show you is with FM Starting Point. This is a solution from Richard Carlton Consulting that they generously have given away to the community. You can download it from their website. And it's a fairly complex, full-featured kind of general business management system that you can use to start building a FileMaker system from. It's got 27 tables, 1,259 fields, 225 table occurrences, and I downloaded that and just ran through the setup process one time in MirrorSync. It took me about 33 minutes to get it done. I did the same thing last year, and it took me about an hour to get it done. The reason that it went a lot faster this time is because one of the other major new features in MirrorSync 2 is it now will automatically read your relationship graph to find out all the relationships. You used to have to specify those by hand, telling it what the key fields were. And so that's all now done for you. So the setup time gives you an idea that even for whether your solution is a single one table solution or it's a pretty complex, full size, full scale system that you're syncing, it does not take long to set these up in MirrorSync because there's really not much work to do on a per table basis. So I'm going to hide my slides right now, and I'm going to jump over to my demo here. So I've got FileMaker starting point, and so this is what it looks like. And I've got two test records in here. Here's me, and here's a test that came with starting point. And I am going to show you how to, now I've already done this configuration. I don't want to spend 33 minutes of your time showing you how I did this. So if I look in the MirrorSync configuration, I've got a test configuration that's just for my experimentation that I'm not going to get into right now. And then I've got this FM starting point configuration. And I just want to show you what it looks like, what the sync process looks like, to show you a little bit of the speed. So I'm going to download this database. Before I download it, well, while I'm downloading, I'll talk about what I'm doing. I'm going to come back and talk more about the create link button later. For now, I'm going to use the download button, which just downloads a copy of this onto my computer. It's a single file solution, which is why I click single there. And these instructions I'm just going to skip over. I'll let you read those on your own. I'm putting in my server admin credentials. I'm hitting download. What's happening now is that I'm running MirrorSync on my own computer here in Atlanta. The FileMaker server, as I mentioned, is in Virginia. What's happening is that MirrorSync is going to the server in Virginia, pausing the database, getting a copy of it, compressing it, and downloading it to my own computer, and it's just finished. So now I've got a full copy. Here, I'll save it on my desktop. I'll use my local version, and that's normal because I'm running FileMaker Server on this computer. And so all I just did basically is I just downloaded a copy of the database. But it's a much more convenient process, I think you would agree, than going into the server admin console, closing the database, which disconnects all the users from it, downloading it, reopening it, and then going to find it. So now I have this offline copy. It looks very similar. It looks identical basically to this because it is identical. But I'm going to just run a sync to show you what the initial sync looks like in MirrorSync. I'm going to go scripts, MirrorSync scripts, and I'll run the MirrorSync script here. It's asking me what the name of my computer is. It's asking me what my password is. The starting point solution doesn't come with password protected, so I'm going to leave that blank. And let me just remind you that this sync is happening between Atlanta and Virginia, and that initial sync with no changes took just under 4 seconds. If I do, the initial sync usually takes longer than the incremental syncs because it's checking all the records. So if I do another sync, it should happen a little bit faster. And so that sync finishes in less than a second. So you might ask yourself, why is it important? You didn't make any changes. Who cares how long it took? But it actually really does matter how long a no sync change takes place, because that makes it if your users know that they can sync in less than a second if there's no changes, then they're going to get in the habit of syncing often. It's not a big deal for them. It's just like checking email. You wouldn't even check for email if it took 30 seconds to check for it. But the sync happens so fast that it's not a big deal for your user to get in the habit of clicking the sync button whenever they want to see if there's something new on the server or whenever they want to push something up to the server. So let's see what the speed is like when I get some actual data in here. So I'm going to import some fake data. I got this from a neat website, generatedData.com, I think, or maybe it's generate data. I can't remember the name of the site, but here's the text file that I have. I've got first name, email, company, and phone. Don't import the first record, so I'm going to import these 100 records here. They don't have primary keys or anything, so I'm going to leave that box checked. Now I'm importing them into the server file. So this takes just a little bit. Remember, just to remind you, I'm working on a server in Virginia, so it takes a little bit longer. So I just imported 100 records into my server file. Notice that I have 2 records in my offline file. I wouldn't normally, in real life, I would not have both of these databases both open. It wouldn't make sense. I would only have my laptop file opened. So if I'm working on this file and I want to get everything that has come from the server, I just run MirrorSync again, and it pops up, asks the server to give it a list of changes, and then it inserts them into the starting point database. And it just added 100 records in less than 5 seconds. So that is just kind of the basic overview of what MirrorSync does. So all of these things are now in my file. If I wasn't on a webinar right now, I could completely disconnect from my network, and I would still be able to work on this file at full speed because it's my own local file. And then when I have changes that I want to make, I just run the sync script again, and they push back up to the server. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is really pretty similar to what MirrorSync 1 already did. This is a faster version than MirrorSync 1, but I'm not really showing you a whole lot that is new to MirrorSync 2. While I'm on the topic of speed, I do want to show you one thing that is pretty cool, which is deletions. I'm going to delete a record, delete another record, delete another record. So I've deleted 3 records. I'm going to run my MirrorSync script here. And so what it's going to do is it's going to find those records. It's scanning for the primary keys to compare them to what's on the server. And it just deleted those same records on the server. That took 5.3 seconds. Let me just delete another here. Run the sync again. So as you can see, the speed here is, it's about 5 seconds to scan all the primary keys, compare them to what's on the server. And one thing that's really changed a lot in MirrorSync 2, and I don't have enough sample data to really show you, but we made this deletion scanning a lot faster. In MirrorSync 1, it was fine with 100 records. If you had 10,000 records, 20,000 records, it might take 30 seconds to run the sync. Now it's about 5 or 6 seconds or less, even when you've got that quantity of records. So I'm pretty much done with this demo. I just wanted to show you what it looks like to run the sync, to see what the speed looks like when you're connecting to a remote server over a home internet connection. And also I should point out that since I'm broadcasting up my audio and video for the webinar, I'm actually operating at a reduced speed for my internet connection. So this is kind of a worst case scenario, and the speed is very acceptable. That's my first demo. Let me jump back to my slides here. So now I get into what I find to be a more interesting demo, because now I'm really going to get to show off the stuff that's new in MirrorSync 2. What I want to show you is syncing with a separate mobile file. In this particular example, FM Starting Point is really, it's a database that's well designed to run on an iPad. They've built iPad layouts and iPhone layouts of a lot of the screens in Starting Point, so that it's really a pretty mobile-friendly database. So I'm kind of just hypothetically saying, what if it wasn't that way? What if this was a very big, complex system sitting on our server with a huge relationship graph and just gigabytes of images on all the screens and just way too much complexity to just copy it down and load it on our iPad? In that case, let's say that all we really want is essentially just a Rolodex file. We want an iPad-friendly or iPhone-friendly Rolodex file that syncs up with the contacts in Starting Point. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate for you. I'm going to show you a separate mobile file. It's going to have different tables and fields, and I'm going to also show you how to do record filtering. And to do this, I'm going to use the FileMaker starter solution. I'm actually going to use the contacts database file that comes with FileMaker. So this is an interesting example. I'm not taking Starting Point and paring it down. I'm actually taking a completely unrelated database, the contacts system from FileMaker, and I'm going to show you how you can integrate these two systems and keep them in sync with each other. So I'm back to Starting Point. Let me hide some of the stuff in the background so it's not distracting. And I'm going to create a new starter solution, which is my contact solution. And I'll name this Contacts Mobile. And here it is. Here's my contacts database. And now I am going to make one change from this default starter solution, which is, as I've discovered in the demo, if I start off with an empty database, it will create a new record, and I don't really want that. I'd rather just be able to have a truly empty database with no records in it, so I can start with an empty clone. So I'm just going to make that one change to the script. That's the only change I make before I upload it to my server. So I am going to now upload this contacts database, and I'm going to put it on our server in Virginia. Okay. So now I have the same file open. Now I'm opening it from Virginia. So this is not a local copy of the file. This is a remote copy of the file. And just to make sure that I don't get them mixed up, I'm going to actually throw away my local copy of the file. So I only have the remote one to work with. And so now I'm just going to get started. I'm actually going to walk through this setup process with you so you can see what the setup looks like for a simple database. I'm going to create a new configuration here. The first thing I need to do is pick my hub database. In this case, the hub is kind of the central starting point that everything else is coming from. I'm picking FileMaker Server because that's where my database lives right now. And I'm not going to get into it for this demo, but you can see that we support Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, and any JDBC compatible database. So MirrorSync is not just limited to FileMaker. I'm actually running MirrorSync on my own laptop here, and that's not the same machine as the FileMaker server in Virginia. So I'm going to say these are different machines, and I'm going to customize this with the address of my FileMaker server. It's an admin no password, as it would be for any starter solution. And oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so my hub database is starting point. So that's the database that contains all the information that I want to start with, and that's why we call that the hub. So I'm going to click OK there. I'm going to go to the next screen. It's communicating with the server in Virginia to make sure that everything is correct. And it's telling me that for each table that I plan on synchronizing, I need to have at least 3 fields, and I need to create layouts for these. I'm actually skipping this step because I'm going to use the same layouts that I have already built in the starting point database that I did for demo number 1. So I don't need to do any of this stuff since I've already done it in demo 1. Now we get to the spoke database. The spoke database is my offline client database. So in this case, it's going to be FileMaker Pro. And I have a choice here. I can sync with an empty clone or complete copy of the main file. If I selected this, then I would just be working with the starting point database on my own laptop or my iPad. But I don't want to do that in this case. I want to work with a completely separate mobile database. So I put that mobile database on the FileMaker server, which is what I've already done. If I jump over to FileMaker here, this is my mobile database that I want to use. So for that, same admin, no password. I'm going to click Choose. It's Contacts Mobile. And what you'll notice here is that Contacts Mobile is not in the list. And so we've added this button here, my database is not in this list. And then it tells you if you don't see your database in the list, make sure the FMXML extended privilege is enabled for your account. So I need to jump over to FileMaker. I need to go into Security, modify my privilege set, and enable that XML privilege set. And now when I choose it, there's my Contacts Mobile file. And the reason I kind of make a little bit of a big deal about this in the demo is just to give you an example that we've really, really worked hard to make this a very end-user friendly process. Will, who does a lot of the support for MirrorSync, can tell you that we've gotten a lot of calls from people, and they've gotten stuck on various screens. And every time someone gets stuck, we go in and we figure out how we can make that process easier to get them unstuck without needing to call us. So we've really, really made this a very user-friendly process. So there's 3 things, just copy and paste operations that I need to do anytime I'm using a new database with MirrorSync. So I'm just going to do them right now. I'm going to kind of move quickly. I'm not going to read all the instructions because I want to save your time. So I need to copy a table. I'm using FileMaker 13. It's been put on my clipboard. I'm going to switch over to, I don't want iCal, I want FileMaker. And I'm going to just paste this table. Done. The next step is to copy some scripts. Again, I'll just go into my scripts and I will paste. Done. And what you'll notice is that as I complete each step, MirrorSync is looking at the server and it's checking on that step off to make sure that I've completed that step. Now it gives me some layout elements. And for those layout elements, I just go to the existing MirrorSync layout. This layout got created when I pasted the table. So I'm going to delete my header. I'm going to delete everything on here. And I'm just going to paste in the contents of my clipboard. And I could use it as is, but I'm just going to shrink it to make it look a little nicer. Okay, I'm done there. I've got all my green checks. So I've done all the basic steps in order to use this file with MirrorSync. The next thing I do, now for this one, I actually do need to follow these instructions because I have not set this file up previously. So the instructions are saying I need to have 3 fields for every table: a primary key, a creation timestamp, and a modification timestamp. Once I have those 3 fields, then I need to create a new layout for each table that I'm going to sync. And I can name it whatever I want. So let me jump over to here. I'm going to look at my field definitions. Now this does have a primary key right here, contact ID matching field. but when I sort by type, I see there are no timestamps in this database. So I need to create a timestamp modified. I can name these fields whatever I want, and a timestamp created. Then I'm going to create a new layout like it said to do in the instructions, and it is for my contacts table. So I will name that sync contacts. Again, I can name it whatever I want. That's just an easy way for me to tell what I'm using it for. And I just drag all the fields on. I don't need to make them look pretty. I don't really need to care what they are. The only reason that I would not drag all the fields on, if I had specific fields that I did not want to have synced, then I could remove them at this point, and then they would not be included in the sync. I've done these steps, so now I can go to the next step here. And so now this is all, now it's asking me which tables do I want to sync from the starting point solution. These are all of my hub tables, and all of my sync layouts are down here towards the end. So I want to sync the contacts table in starting point with the contacts table in my mobile file. So I'm going to pick the contacts file here. And now these are the layouts on my mobile file, and I just need to match that up with whichever one I want here. It hasn't come in yet, so I'm going to click refresh, and that tells MirrorSync to go get a new list. And so it just went and found the new contacts layout that I had added, and it sees that since these names match, it automatically puts them together. So now I've mapped up these two tables. Now I get into where you can control some of the configurations for MirrorSync based on how you want the sync to work. You can optionally set an email address, and you can tell it to sync if there's, or email you if there's any errors or failures during the sync. It also asks you, will you have any users in accessing FileMaker Server from different time zones? In my case, the answer is no here. If you had, MirrorSync will actually automatically take care of time zones for all of your offline syncing users. You don't need to do anything special for them. You do need to do some special instructions if you have people who are connecting directly as a guest to FileMaker Server, if they're not in the same time zone as FileMaker Server. So if I clicked yes here, it would just point me to some setup instructions that I need to follow. Now we get into the table configuration options. Here I can specify whether I want a bidirectional sync, whether I want a one-way sync from the hub to the spoke, whether I want a one-way sync from the spoke to the hub, and so in this case I will pick bidirectional. Now we get to our primary key matching. MirrorSync is unique, as far as I know, in supporting traditional FileMaker serial numbers. You'll notice that I have not added any UUID fields to these tables. You might assume that you need to have a UUID field in order to do syncing, but with MirrorSync you don't need it. You can if you want. If you do UUID, you would pick developer managed. But MirrorSync is capable of managing your existing serial numbers, which is very nice because it makes it that much less work that you need to do to use MirrorSync with your existing FileMaker solutions. You'll see more about the merging and flagging as conflicts later, so just keep in mind for now that I'm set to merge fields together if the different fields get changed in the same record. And for conflicts, if there is a conflict that can't be merged, I would like to pick which side of which record to pick as the winner of that conflict resolution. So everything is fine there. Now MirrorSync needs to know about my primary keys and my modification timestamps. So my primary key for starting point is the ID contact field. It automatically found my mod stamp and my creation timestamp. And then over on my mobile file, my contacts is the contact ID matching field. And again, it automatically picked up my modification and my creation timestamps. Now what it's doing is it's going to that server in Virginia, and it is reading the relationship graph to see all of the keys. This might take it a few seconds because the relationship graph, as I mentioned, has got 225 elements on it, and it is going over a WAN. But what it just did is it found all the foreign keys, and it sets them up here. The reason we're not seeing any is because we're only syncing one table. So there are no foreign keys in just the sync contacts table. So this is empty, and this is basically my relationship graph, which looks like, no relationships, which is normal. Now we get up to the part that you may not have seen before. Even if you've seen MirrorSync demos, you probably haven't seen this screen. This is the field mapping screen. And so this is so cool to me, because what we have here is we've got all the starting point fields on the left and all the FileMaker solution fields on the right. MirrorSync automatically found the ones that matched and matched them up by name. You'll notice that it's smart about things, like it knew to treat the underscores as spaces on these fields. So these were very similar names, but they happen to just have an underscore in them. So MirrorSync found those and matched those up. It matched the title and the website. It didn't match up these ones down here. So I'm just going to drag these to where they go. And thank you, Will, who did a lot of work on this part to get the field mappings to work correctly. I'm going to pick, let's get my phone number and drag that up to phone. I'm not going to do all these fields. I'm going to do maybe 4 or 5 just so you can see kind of what this looks like. I'll just get my core phone, email type fields. Let's see, I've got name, email, name, first name. Oh, let's get our name fields. Here it is, first. So I'll go with name first. And let's get our last name. Match that up. And the only other one that I'm going to do, I want to show you the container syncing feature. So I'm going to grab photo container. I'm going to drag that up to go with the contact container field. Okay, and that turns orange, and there's a tooltip over it just says containers take longer to sync than non-container data. So this is going to run a little bit slower than if I didn't have container fields, but I just want to show that to you because I think it's pretty cool to see the container fields in operation. So now I've at least picked all of my kind of really important fields. I've mapped them up, and I'm done with this screen. Changes have been saved, and now MirrorSync has written the sync script for me. I don't need to write the script. I don't even need to edit the script. All I need to do is copy and paste the script. So I'm going to, it's written 2 scripts, one for starting point and one for the mobile file. So this one is for starting point. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go into my server version. Now this really might take a little while to open up this script or to paste this script across the WAN. So far the speed seems good. That's good. It's a long script. Okay, good. That worked very quickly. Good. And so I'm done with that step. Now I'm going to do my copy and paste for my context mobile file. So I jump over to context mobile. And I'll paste that script there. And I get my green check mark showing that that worked. And so we just completed the entire setup process. We're done. That's the work that you just saw there is the entire amount of integration required. So now let's go ahead and do the sync so you can see it in operation. So I used the download database before, but this time instead of the download button, I'm going to show you how you would probably more realistically deploy this to real users that are out in the field. So instead of the download button, I'm going to use the create link button. It is a single file solution, so I'm going to pick single here. Gives me some instructions. I'm going to put in my FileMaker Server admin credentials. And I can choose whether I want to get a complete copy of the database or an empty clone. MirrorSync 2 does support having a pre-populated mobile file that has the same records on it as your main file. So that way, if you've got 100,000 records, you don't need to pull them all down on the initial sync. In my case, I haven't pre-populated this, and so I'm going to pick empty clone so that when I run this URL link, I'm just going to get an empty version of the file that I can start off syncing with. It's now been copied to my clipboard, and I'm going to email that to my iPad. And if this was a user, I would tell them to please download this file and run the MirrorSync script. You can use the same link every time you want to get a new copy of the database. So they could just keep this email on file, and this link is not going to get me the, if I run this link in 1 month from now, I'll get the version of the database as it exists 1 month from now. So it's very simple as a developer to continually evolve your solution. You just change it on the server, and then when your users run the link, they get that version without you having to do anything. So I've sent that link to myself. I'm going to flip over to my iPad here, and I'm going to see if I've gotten it yet. There it is. So let's get started. So now I'm a user in the field. I want to get my contacts database. I want to get my Rolodex file essentially and download it. This file is being downloaded from the server in Virginia through MirrorSync to my iPad. And so it just finished. It's compressed as it goes. So this is a 1.6 megabyte file. It was probably only 800 kilobytes or so actually being transmitted because of the on-the-fly compression that we do. So I'm going to open this up in FileMaker. And here is my database in FileMaker. I'm going to, I don't know if I've got the screen resolution to really do it, but I'm going to see if I can put these two things kind of side by side so you can see a little bit about what's going on in both of them. I'm going to run my sync on the iPad. And if this was a real solution, I certainly would have modified it to add a sync button on my layout, and I would call the MirrorSync script from the button. But you know, since I'm just doing a quick demo here, I'll just call it from my scripts menu. So I'm going to perform the script in the MirrorSync scripts folder. Here it is, MirrorSync. I'm going to run that. It's going to ask me the name of my computer so that I can have that for the logs. It's going to ask me my password, which is empty. In a real solution, users would log in with their own username and password here. You probably would not be, they would probably not be logging in with the admin account. I'm only doing that because that's the only account that I have in my starter solution. And so now the records are copying over. And so it finished that sync in about 4 seconds. And again, just to remind you, this is over a wide area network. It's about 600 miles distance over a home internet connection. You can see that this speed is very, very fast. We just added 98 records, and that includes container fields as well. So I can see that I've got all of these contacts here. There's my other one with a photo in it. So there we go. That's the sync. If I, just out of curiosity, if I run it again, I'm curious to see what the speed is like with no changes. It took about 1 second. So the speed over a wide area network is completely acceptable. I'm going to show you a few other features of MirrorSync 2 now. I mentioned that I wanted to show you conflict resolution. So let's create a new user here. I'm going to use my brother here, Sam Barnum. And I apologize for my slow typing speed. I'm trying to balance this iPad on my knee while I'm talking. So let me go ahead and run this sync. This should upload Sam's record. Okay, 1.2 seconds. That uploaded that record here and onto the server. And so if I show all records and jump to the end, there's Sam's. So you can see I've got Sam on my iPad and Sam on starting point on the server. So what happens if somebody changes Sam's record in both places? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change his full name, Samuel, and then over on the iPad, I'm going to put in his company, 360 Works. Okay, so now I've changed the same record in both places. I'm going to run my sync again. And you see an interesting message here. I don't know if it's big enough for everyone to read, but it says FileMaker Server sync contacts modified 1 record. Client node sync contacts on Jesse's iPad error modified 1 record, and the sync finished in 1.7 seconds. So what it did, the reason it says both of those is because it modified the record on both. It took the changes from the iPad, and then it took the changes from the server, compared them, saw that changes were made on both, saw that the first name field came from the iPad, saw that the company name, actually I've got that back, the first name came from the server and the company name came from the iPad. it merged those changes into a single merged record, and it wrote that merged record back out to both the iPad and the server. So this really, really makes it much less scary for your users to just make changes and sync in a fully bidirectional context, because they know that their information is going to be retained. If there had been a real conflict of changing the same field, then I would have gotten a user interface warning me that there is a conflict and asking me how to resolve it. And then there's a web-based, very simple user interface for selecting which one to win that conflict. The last thing I'll do with Sam's record here is I'm going to delete him. I'll show my toolbar here, and I will just delete this record. And I do that mainly because I just want to show what the speed is like for deletion detection on an iPad, because an iPad runs a little slower than a laptop, and the speed was quite good. It took about a second to detect which record had been deleted on the iPad and delete that on the server. I should point out here that you saw me do the whole setup. At no point did I have to flag these records for deletions. I didn't have to customize any menus. I didn't have to override my delete menu to call a custom script. I didn't have to do anything special. Even if it had been complex cascading delete operations, MirrorSync is smart enough to just find all the deletions for you and just make it happen wherever it needs to happen. I should also point out that you can disable this deletion. If you were doing a one-way sync, like from the iPad to your server, and you're doing data collection, you probably don't want to delete the records on the server once you wipe them out on the iPad. So you don't always need to have deletions go both ways. That's up to you whether you want it or not. So I'm almost done with this demo. The last thing that I said I was going to show you is the record level filtering. Now I've got 98 records here, which is not a ton. It's not a big database. I certainly don't need to filter them down based on the size. But we do have people who are using MirrorSync with 600,000, 700,000 record databases, and they may only want to get their users to get 30 or 40,000 of them. Maybe they only want to get their users to get the records that they created themselves, or that are assigned to them, or that have a certain status. So since I don't have that many records in my sample database, I'm going to do a different kind of thing. I'm going to pretend that this database is sent out to salespeople, and that this particular iPad is for somebody who is an EDU. They're an educational salesperson, and so they're supposed to have only access to educational accounts defined by having an EDU email. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my server file. I'm going to customize my scripts, and when I pasted my scripts, one of them is called MirrorSync Customization. And there's a lot of things that I can do. I encourage you, when you're using MirrorSync, to go through and read all of these, all this documentation in more detail. But you can do things like take special action when a record gets inserted. For instance, if you want to email an administrator when a new job is created, you could do that. When a record gets updated, you could take some special actions, such as creating an audit log record. If a record's about to be deleted, you could take some action, such as not allowing it to be deleted if you wanted. What I'm going to focus on here is the find changes customization. So I can customize this by just doing my own find to limit what records come down to the iPad. And so we've put in just kind of a boilerplate example. I'm going to duplicate that example and then just customize it. So if my get layout name is equal to sync contacts, because remember, this customization script gets called for each table. If I had more than one, I would want to do a different find depending on what layout I'm in. I'm going to go into find mode, and then I'm just going to do a normal FileMaker find. I'm just going to go to my contacts field. I'm going to go to my email field, and I'm going to say I only want to find records that end in an edu suffix. So I save that. There's nothing for me to change on my mobile file. All of that customization takes place on the server file. Notice on my iPad that I've got 98 records right now. You can see at the bottom, 13 of 98 records. So I'm going to run my sync again, having made that customization. It just deleted 80 records because they didn't fit the criteria that I have. And as you can see here, this is an EDU, EDU, EDU. So it's filtered out all of the records that I was not supposed to have. So you can probably imagine all sorts of scenarios of ways you could use this. You could make it so that only jobs that have an active status go on the iPad, and once they change to completed, they're immediately removed from the iPad. You could make it so that only users only get the records that they create based on their account name. You could get it so users only get records for jobs that are due within the next 7 days. Whatever criteria you can come up with, you would just write a simple find like I just did, and that gives you complete control over what records you get on your mobile file. And that is the conclusion of my 2 demo files. So I'm getting kind of near the end of my presentation. I think I'm doing fairly good on time. I've got a few more slides to get through, and then we'll get into questions. So if you've got questions, please go ahead and start putting them in right now, and we'll be there in like 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 5. So just a recap of the bullet points that I showed you before. You saw the speed improvements. You saw that all of these syncs that I'm doing over a wide area network, over over just a consumer level internet connection, are happening between 1 and 5 seconds for hundreds, for 100 records. You saw that we can create a separate mobile file from the server database, allowing you to create mobile specific workflows. You saw how easy it was to drag and drop the fields and layouts so that even when the field names don't match up, it's still very straightforward to set up the configuration. You saw the download link feature and how easy that it makes it for a developer. If I wanted to add that sync button, for instance, I mentioned before, if I was doing this for real, I would add a sync button. If I went into the server button and I went in right now and just modified the layout and added a sync button, the next time the user clicked that download link button, without me having to do anything, I don't even need to send them a new link. They could use the same link that I already sent them. They would get a new version of the file that has those customizations. So it's a very simple updating process. And the field level conflict merging, you saw that that's a very powerful solution, and it's also it's very safe because you don't have to wonder whether you're overwriting some other user's change. If there was an actual conflict, MirrorSync would stop you and it would say, I'm not going to write this until you tell me what to do. So it's a very safe process, and it doesn't happen often because of the field merging. You saw how easy it was to set up this custom record filters to only sync certain records, and even though I didn't demo it, I at least talked about the other types of actions you can take, about custom actions on an update or an insert or a deletion. And just to reiterate, everything that I've shown you right now, you can do right now today for free on one device. There's no expiration dates. There's no limitations on features. It's not a demo. It's not a trial. It is the full MirrorSync file feature set. The only limitation is that if you want more than one device, you would need to pay a license fee for the additional devices. And that license fee ranges from $50 per device to $95 per device, depending on the volume that you're purchasing them in. To talk about a few real live MirrorSync examples. There's a lot of people using MirrorSync. I picked 3 here for this slide. And these are done by fellow FM Academy members. So the first one is from Skeleton Key, based in St. Louis. They built a time entry system for a general contractor that's got 200 people out in the field that need to enter their time on a job-by-job basis and have all of that come back into a FileMaker system. And they need to be able to do it without working internet on the construction site. So they were able to accomplish that with MirrorSync for 200 users. Keologic built a system so that medical instructors can conduct on-site class training, and without needing to worry about an internet connection, they can enter all the student grades and all the student information on their laptops and iPads, and then they can sync that back up to their central system when they get back to an internet connection. 360 Works, based in Atlanta, we built a system for a construction consulting firm. And what they do is they go to large, complex hotel and hospital and apartment construction sites, and they'll monitor the construction process, and they'll check off things as they get completed in hundreds of hotel rooms and hospital rooms. And they'll be on site, and every night they'll come back to the hotel room and they'll hit sync on their iPad, and all of their construction inspection information will sync back up to their FileMaker server so that they can give their customer real-time information on the status of that construction as early as the next morning following that. So some additional information about MirrorSync and about 360 Works. We've got the FileMaker Developer Conference coming up in San Antonio. That's going to be July 28th through the 31st. I'm going with Lisa and the kids. We're packing up the van and going on a road trip. We're going to stop in New Orleans on the way and have a good time. And I will be presenting MirrorSync 2 at DevCon. I've got a vendor session at Thursday, July 31st. It's at 9 a.m. in the Periwinkle Room. That would be a great chance to get to talk to you, and also, of course, I'll be at the booth while we're there. So please stop by and ask me any questions you have. I am going to be showing, that might be a good session to go to, even if you attended this one, because I've got different content for that demo. I'm going to be focusing more on the server-to-server aspects of MirrorSync, how you can use it to have like multiple FileMaker servers in different cities staying in sync with each other, or maybe you've got like a web-based MySQL database and like an online store or online registration or something, and you need to keep that in sync with an internal FileMaker server. You can do that with MirrorSync too, and I'll show you how at DevCon. Um, and then you can contact any FileMaker Academy member if you'd like help with integration. You can contact us, of course. We've done a lot of MirrorSync integrations, and we're happy to help. But most of the other FileMaker Academy members have also helped their customers set up MirrorSync, so you're welcome to contact either us or them. And here's our email address one more time, support@360works. I do want to remind you that there's going to be another webinar next month put on by Keologic, by Tim Neudecker of Keologic. That topic on August 19th is going to be deploying FileMaker Pro in an IT environment so that you can learn from their experiences deploying FileMaker in a more heavily managed situation with a lot of policies and firewalls and things, and just making sure that you're able to deploy FileMaker for the best experience for your users while maintaining the policies and guidelines of the IT department. A few last pieces of information about 360works and way to get news from us. Our email's there, yet again, support@360works.com. Twitter is where we do post most of our stuff. I would recommend following us on Twitter if you're interested in staying up to date with this stuff, because when we post a video tutorial or we post a new update to MirrorSync, Twitter is the first place that we post that. So you'll always get our update announcements if you follow us on Twitter. The main MirrorSync webpage is at mirrorsync.com. That's where you can go to download the free copy of MirrorSync and install it. And then Facebook is very similar to our Twitter feed, except we're not limited to 140 characters, so we can provide a little bit more detailed information there. But on the other hand, Facebook, you never know if you're going to get someone's post or not. So Twitter might be the more reliable mechanism for that stuff. I've got the list of other FM Academy members here: 360works in Atlanta, MSN Media in Portland, IT Solutions in Philadelphia, Anvil Data Works in DC and Baltimore, DB Services in Indianapolis, Skeleton Key in St. Louis, Keologic in Connecticut and Boston, and 360works if you're not in one of those places, or if you just would like to work with us directly on a MirrorSync integration. And now we get to the Q&A part. So thank you guys for going through that demo. It looks like we've got about 7 minutes left on our demo. Will, are you there?
I'm here.
Do you have do we have some questions that have come up that I can help with?
Yes, sir. We've got a few questions here. I think the first question that we should address is the question burning in everyone's mind. How is MirrorSync better than GoSync?
I don't know whether I want to answer that question. I really like John and Todd at Seed Code, and they're really good guys, and I have a lot of respect for them and for their product. And I would just say that if you're really interested in that question, contact me directly, and I can talk to you more about it. But I have a lot of respect for them, and I don't feel comfortable really kind of saying anything negative about their product on this webinar. So feel free to contact me if you'd like to ask that question. You can email us at support@360works, and especially if you have specific questions that you'd like to have answered. But I think I'd like to refrain from really directly comparing the two products in a public environment.
I think that's fine and quite respectable. So on to the next question. Regarding FM Server, is FM Server required for MirrorSync, or will this work with only an FM Pro solution?
FileMaker Server is required for MirrorSync. That is one area where there's nothing wrong with saying good things about GoSync. So that is one area that you might consider GoSync, is that if you do not have FileMaker Server and you just want to do a sync between FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Pro, or an iPad and FileMaker Pro, then I would recommend looking at GoSync. There are a lot of advantages that MirrorSync has over GoSync. There are a few advantages that GoSync has over MirrorSync. One of the major advantages that MirrorSync or GoSync does offer is that it does not require FileMaker Server. So that would be my recommendation if you do not have FileMaker Server. On the other hand, before I leave that one alone, I would really, really strongly recommend that if you're doing any sort of business critical operations with FileMaker, that you should be running FileMaker Server. If for no other reason than just the automated backups. I mean, there's a lot of features in FileMaker Server and there's a lot of good stuff. The only one that, if it was me and it was my business, all I need to hear about is that it has the automated backups every night, that it keeps a history of backups. And if that's my business critical information, I have a lot more faith in that than I do in trying to remember to close down my single user copy of FileMaker and upload it somewhere every night without potentially corrupting it. So I would recommend FileMaker Server whether you're using MirrorSync or not.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the networking components behind MirrorSync. How does MirrorSync work with firewalls? What's necessary in order to get MirrorSync to communicate?
Yeah, good question. So the one thing that is pretty unique about MirrorSync is that it does not connect as a guest of FileMaker Server. All of the network syncing being done in MirrorSync is being done over standard web ports, port 80 or port 443 if you want SSL encryption. And that's a big part of the reason. There's a lot of reasons why MirrorSync is fast. That's one of the things that I get very passionate about is speed, speed, speed. But one of the big reasons is because we don't need to connect as a guest to FileMaker Server, and we don't need to connect on port 5003. We don't need holes punched in the firewalls on a special proprietary port because the FileMaker script uses the insert from URL script step, which was new in 12 and then upgraded in 13. If you're using old versions of FileMaker like 10 or 11, then we use a web viewer to accomplish the same thing. So all of the communication with MirrorSync does not, it's very network friendly, it's proxy friendly, and it's a big part of the reason for the speed of MirrorSync because we're sending direct HTTP packets instead of the somewhat less efficient WAN performance of the FileMaker network protocol. It's also a big part of the reason why MirrorSync is not very affected by distances and why I felt comfortable doing this sync operation with our server between Atlanta and Virginia, because we send information in large bulk packets, which means that we're very little affected by ping time and latency, unlike FileMaker, which is really, really detrimentally affected if you have a slow, laggy ping time.
Okay. Here's another question. Is it possible to map a single table in the hub or the spoke to multiple tables on the opposite end of the sink?
It's a great question. The answer is no, not currently. It would be quite complex to do that. It creates some logical problems in terms of, if you have a too-many relationship, how do you map that to single fields in the primary table? And so we don't have that feature. We've thought about it a lot. It would be a major undertaking, so it's not really on our roadmap at the moment. So there does need to be a one-to-one correlation between one table on your hub needs to go with one table on your spoke.
Okay, excellent. Now, how about container fields using encryption storage? Does MirrorSync support that?
That is fully supported. That all happens between the FileMaker server and the web publishing engine, and we're communicating with the web publishing engine. So yes, that is completely supported.
Excellent. So here's another one for you. Is it possible to disable a remote user from being able to run the sync?
Yes. If you, in the licensing configuration for MirrorSync, you would see a list of all of the offline users. You can simply remove them from the list, and then they would no longer be able to run the sync. One other thing that I'll show you relating to that is if I go into the download database button, there's this disable link. If I do that, then all the download links that I've sent out are revoked and can no longer function. So if I had a user that, I had just terminated, for instance, employment, I would disable this link, then I would generate a new one, and then I would send that new link to my users. And I would remove them from the list of devices so that they could no longer sync with their offline file.
Excellent. So here's a question that is involving the demo that you've just performed. The question is it possible to sync this context database or a similar context database with the native iCloud contacts of iOS and Mac?
I would love to do that. And every time that Apple comes with WWDC, I keep waiting for them to announce support for something like that. But unfortunately, iCloud is a closed off system. There is no web accessible API. The only way to access that is through Cocoa APIs in like a native Mac application. So unfortunately, no, there is no way to do that, although it's something I've given a lot of thought about, and I'm trying to work out some alternative ways to accomplish something like that.
Okay, and you already when discussing the encrypted containers, um, do we does MirrorSync also support all other container storage methods such as external stored containers or containers stored as a reference?
Yes, MirrorSync will support embedded containers, containers stored in open storage, and containers stored in secure storage. There is one additional step that you do need to be aware of, is that when you're syncing with a clone, that's fine. There's nothing to worry about. It's completely fine. When you're syncing with a laptop, there's nothing to worry about. There's no extra steps. However, if you are syncing with an iPad, remember that an iPad, everything has to be self-contained in a single file. So there is one additional step, and this is described in the MirrorSync documentation, is that if you want to sync with a copy of a file from the server that has container data that's externally stored, what you would do is you would download that data from FileMaker Server, and then you would need to open that file in FileMaker, and there's a new option in FileMaker Server when you say save a copy as. Let me get a local copy open here so I can show you. Oh, I threw that file away. That's helpful. Um, threw that file away too. If in the save a copy as, which I can't do right now because it's a server file, there's a new choice in the menu that says save a self-contained version of it. And that will create a file that is completely self-contained with all the container data embedded in it. And that's necessary anytime that you want to put a file that has container data onto an iPad. And that's not a MirrorSync limitation. That's just how FileMaker Go works. You always need to do that before transferring a file like that to FileMaker Go. We are a little bit over time, so let's do one more question, and then I think we should wrap it up.
Okay. The next question is regarding technically unsupported data sources such as Postgres DBS. Will that work with the JDBC interface included with MirrorSync?
Yes, I have not done much testing on that. I've done some testing, and it does work. So yes, definitely it will work with the version that's on MirrorSync. Whoever has that question, I would definitely recommend contacting support@360works.com. Let us know what you're trying to do. We can probably get on a screen sharing session with you to help show you where to put that JDBC driver. And if you do run into any problems, we'd like to know about it so that we can help with that. But it does work. I have tested it, and we'd love to help you try it out. So I think we should wrap up there. What I will mention to everybody is, as I discussed, I'm going to be sending out an email to everybody who registered for this webinar with a copy of these PowerPoint files, as well as a video of the, I believe that I've been recording this session, a video recording of the session, and I encourage you to get in touch with us via support at 360works.com. Please try MirrorSync out, download it. We also have something I forgot to mention. We have a live demo. So if you go to mirrorsync.com, you'll see a button there that you can click from your iPad or iPhone to just download an offline file that runs on our server in Virginia that you can experiment with right there. So if you want to try some things out and see how it goes, you can just try that live demo. All right, I think we'll end it here. Thank you guys, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you on August 19th for the next webinar. Thanks, guys.